The Broken Sky. The first warning came as a trembling in the sky. People on Earth thought it was an earthquake at first. Then the stars shifted, rippling like a broken mirror. Ships, bigger than mountains, tore through the fabric of space. The Galactic Empire had arrived. They were not here to talk. They were here to rule. High above Earth's atmosphere, 1,000 warships hung in silence, casting shadows across the oceans. They carried banners of fire and steel, symbols of an empire that had crushed 100 worlds before. For a moment, Earth's leaders froze. No one had ever prepared for this. Humanity had built colonies, mined asteroids, and dreamed of reaching the stars. But the Galactic Empire was something else. They were ancient. They were powerful. And they demanded obedience. A single message came through, broadcast on every screen, every radio, every channel across the planet. Kneel or burn. The words were simple, cold, and final. The president tried to negotiate. Generals tried to organize defenses. But Earth's fleets were small. Tiny frigates and patrol ships, nothing compared to the Empire's armada. Within hours, orbital stations were shattered. Defense satellites turned to sparks. The sky burned. In the cities, panic spread. Families crowded into bunkers thinking they could hide. Soldiers marched, but their rifles looked like toys against plasma cannons. It seemed like the end. The Empire did not bother with mercy. Their fleets opened fire, not to conquer, but to break. Entire coastlines were scorched. The oceans boiled in places where beams cut too deep. They wanted Earth to kneel through fear. But something strange happened. The more they tried to break Earth, the more stubborn the people became. In the ashes of ruined cities, small groups resisted. A pilot flew his damaged jet straight into an enemy cruiser. Farmers turned barns into traps. Old satellites, once used for weather, were hacked by teenagers into weapons. Earth was bleeding, but it refused to bow. The Empire laughed. To them, this resistance was nothing. Humans were ants throwing dust at giants. They continued their bombardment, preparing for the final strike. And then, the broadcasts began. At first it was only whispers, encrypted signals echoing through military channels, too sharp to be random static. Then came images, dark figures in black armor, moving like shadows through the Empire's ships. A fleet that was not listed on Earth's records, soldiers who were not supposed to exist. The world learned a name, the Phantom Legion. No one knew where they came from. Some said they were a secret Earth project, hidden for decades in the void. Others claimed they were veterans of forgotten wars, ghosts who had sworn never to let Earth fall. All that mattered was this: they had returned. Above the ruined Pacific, the first sign appeared. A single Empire battleship suddenly went dark. No alarms, no warning, just silence, then fire, as explosions tore through its hull from the inside out. A second fell minutes later, then a third. The Empire fleet began to shift, confused. Their scans showed nothing, no incoming ships, no missiles. Yet one by one, their mighty warships were being gutted from within. On Earth, people looked up and saw it. Streaks of silver tearing across the night sky, followed by thunder that shook the air. The Phantom Legion had revealed itself. They were not many. Their ships were smaller than the Empire's, almost invisible in the black of space. But they moved with precision, with purpose. Where the Empire's warships were heavy and arrogant, the Phantom Legion struck like knives. Inside their ships, human soldiers wore armor black as shadow, faces hidden behind glowing visors. They said nothing. They moved like ghosts, bombarding enemy cruisers, cutting through halls with silent fury. The Empire tried to mock them at first. Phantoms, they sneered. Shadows cannot fight an empire. But when the first fleet fell in under an hour, laughter turned to silence. On Earth, in the ruins of a broken city, a young boy watched the sky glow with burning ships. He asked his mother a question, voice trembling. "Who are they?" She stared at the streaks of light, the hidden fleet carving through giants, and whispered, "They are ours." The Galactic Empire had come to break Earth, but in their arrogance, they had awakened something far worse. And the galaxy was about to learn that ghosts could bleed empires dry. Shadows in the void, the Empire had faced resistance before. Dozens of worlds had raised armies against them. None lasted. None had a chance. But this was different. On the Empire's command ship, high above Earth, Admiral Vaynar stood at the center of a glowing war map. His voice thundered as he demanded answers from his officers. How are they doing this? How do ships that small tear through our fleet? No one could give him an answer. Sensors showed nothing until it was too late. The Phantom Legion moved like ghosts, slipping through blind spots, striking from nowhere. Their weapons were not stronger, but they were sharper, more precise. Every shot was a kill. The Empire prided itself on overwhelming force. The Phantom Legion fought with silence and speed. On Earth, people huddled in shelters, staring at hacked broadcasts from orbit. Phantom Legion ships flickered across their screens, fast, dark, terrifying. Yet to Earth's survivors, they were hope. An old soldier named Mason sat in a bunker, his rifle across his knees. Around him were civilians, farmers, children, people with nothing left. They looked to him for words. "Are we saved?" one whispered. Mason shook his head. He had fought wars before, and he knew better. No, not yet. The Legion bleeds them, but the Empire won't run. They'll burn the world before they bow. Still, even Mason F. felt something stir in his chest as another Empire battleship died in flames. For the first time since the invasion began, he believed humanity might have a chance. High in orbit, aboard one of the Phantom Legion's black ships, Commander Rylan stood in the dark of the control deck. His soldiers moved around him, men and women in black armor, each one silent, each one trained to vanish when needed. The Legion had been a secret for decades. Born after old wars, hidden away in deep space, they were Earth's insurance against a day just like this. They had no families, no names in the records. They lived in the shadows, training for a single purpose, to strike when Earth stood at the edge of ruin. And now their time had come. "Target the dreadnought at Sector 4, Rylan ordered, his voice calm. The black ship vanished into the void, its hull bending light, its engines silent. The Empire's sensors showed nothing until their dreadnought split open in fire. Panic spread across the Empire fleet. Ships broke formation, trying to cover each other. But the more they tried, the more the Legion exploited gaps. Like wolves among cattle, they tore through giants. Admiral Vaynar's fury boiled. He opened a channel to Earth itself, his voice shaking the planet's networks. "You think these shadows will save you? You think phantoms can stop the Empire? We will burn your oceans. We will crush your cities until nothing remains but ash." His words thundered across the world. Yet even as people trembled, they saw another Empire ship fall behind him in the feed, flames ripping through the view. And the Phantom Legion's reply came, not in words but in silence. Their symbol appeared across hacked channels, a skull wrapped in shadow, two hollow eyes burning. The message was clear. We are here, we do not speak, we strike. But the battle was not without cost. In the shadow of Earth's moon, a Legion frigate was caught. Enemy fire ripped through its hull, tearing men and women into the void. Commander Rylan watched from his deck, jaw tight, as one of his own ships vanished in silence. The Phantom Legion did not mourn in the open. They carried their dead in silence, vengeance burning in their hearts. Rylan whispered only 4 words: "Mark their killers, erase them." And they did. Back on Earth, the people began to rise. With the Empire distracted, human militias struck at ground forces. Drones were hijacked, supply ships ambushed. Farmers armed with scavenged rifles fought beside engineers hacking enemy tech. The Empire came to break Earth. Instead, they found a world that refused to die. And above them all, the Phantom Legion cut deeper. Still, the Empire was far from defeated. They had not yet unleashed their true weapons. In the depths of their fleet, machines slumbered, colossal constructs built not to conquer, but to erase. Admiral Vaynar turned to his officers. Enough games. Deploy the purge engines. Let Earth know what happens to those who resist the Empire. The room fell silent. Even hardened officers paled at the order. The purge engines were not weapons. They were monsters. Entire continents could vanish under their fire. And so the Shadow War was about to change. On Earth, Mason felt the bunker tremble as the ground shook. Children clung to their parents. In the skies, black clouds gathered where the purge engines began to burn atmosphere. The Phantom Legion had struck first blood, but the Empire was about to answer, and the galaxy would see if Earth's ghosts could stand against fire made to erase worlds. Fire of the purge engines, the sky turned red. Above Earth, the Empire's warships shifted formation, pulling back in eerie silence. For a moment, survivors thought the enemy was retreating. But then came the rumble, the deep, gut-churning sound of engines waking. The purge engines. They were massive machines, each the size of a small moon, locked inside armored cradles. Unlike weapons meant for battle, these devices were built for annihilation. Their cores burned with plasma storms capable of stripping a world bare, leaving nothing but blackened rock. On Earth's surface, people watched in terror as fire clouds swirled, drawn upward as if the sky itself was being consumed. In one ruined city, Mason and the others ran to the streets, staring upward. The sky glowed crimson. Mason felt the ground shiver. "They're not here to conquer," he said, voice hollow. "They're here to erase us." In orbit, Admiral Vaynar stood at the heart of the Empire command ship. His eyes glowed with cruel satisfaction as the purge engines powered up. "Let them see hopelessness," he said coldly. "Let them choke on despair. The more they resist, the more complete their destruction will be." His officers bowed their heads in obedience. Yet even among them, unease lingered. Purge engines were used only in legends, tales told to frighten other worlds into submission. To actually unleash them on Earth was madness. But no one dared question. The Phantom Legion had already seen the truth. On his command deck, Commander Rylan watched the purge engines rise to full power. His visor reflected their red glow. Around him, his soldiers stood waiting, ready. "They will burn Earth to ash," one of his officers said. "Even we cannot stop engines of that size." Rylan's voice was steady. "Then we do what we were made for. We strike where they are weakest. We take their monsters apart from the inside." The Legion ships spread like shadows, vanishing into the dark. They did not hesitate. They had trained their entire lives for impossible odds. The first assault came fast. Phantom Legion fighters darted toward one of the purge engines, weaving through a storm of fire. Empire defense turrets spat plasma in every direction. Several Legion ships were hit, bursting into silent blossoms of flame. Yet the rest pressed forward, slipping through gaps, clinging to the giant machine's hull like insects on steel. Legion soldiers breached the surface, cutting through armored panels. Explosions rippled across the structure. For a moment, it looked like the first purge engine might fall. But the Empire had prepared. Inside the engine, monstrous machines stirred, towering drones made of steel and fire, built solely to defend these doomsday devices. The Legion soldiers found themselves surrounded, outnumbered 10-1. They fought anyway. Black armor flashed in red light as they carved through the drones, every movement precise, every strike deadly. But for each machine that fell, 3 more rose. Commander Rylan received the reports in silence. His hands clenched at the losses. Still, he gave the only order possible. "Continue. Earth must not burn." On the surface, people saw the battle raging high above. Through the red clouds, they could glimpse tiny bursts of light. To most, it looked hopeless, shadows fighting giants in a storm of fire. Yet to a child watching from a shattered rooftop, those sparks were not hopeless. They were proof. "They're fighting for us," the boy whispered. "Even when the world is ending, they fight." His mother pulled him close, tears in her eyes. In space, the first purge engine shuddered. The Legion had managed to overload part of its core. A burst of plasma ripped free, spiraling into the void. The machine staggered, but did not fall. Admiral Vanar roared in fury. "Seal that breach! Do not let the phantoms undo us!" But even as he shouted, another report came in. Second purge engine under assault. Third under heavy fire. The shadows were everywhere, slipping past defenses, striking with impossible precision. Still, the Empire's numbers were vast. For every wound inflicted, the Legion paid in blood. Commander Rylan knew the truth. They could not win by destroying the engines one by one. The Empire would always repair, always rebuild faster than they could strike. He turned to his officers. "It's time. Prepare the Silent Blade." The Legion crew froze. The Silent Blade was not just a weapon. It was their last card, their most dangerous secret. A device that bent space itself into a weapon, unpredictable, unstable, but powerful enough to shatter even a purge engine. Using it meant risk. It could just as easily tear their ships apart as the enemy's. But Earth was dying. They had no choice. Deep within the Empire fleet, sensors screamed as a ripple spread through the void. Space itself bent, folding unnaturally. For the first time, even Admiral Vanar's face twisted with uncertainty. "What is that?" he demanded. No one had an answer. And then the first purge engine split open like a rotten fruit, torn apart from the inside by a blade that could not be seen. The Empire fleet staggered. For the first time they felt fear. The Phantom Legion had bled them before, but now the shadows had revealed a weapon that could cut through even the strongest of their machines. On Earth, the red clouds began to fade as the first purge engine died. People fell to their knees, crying, screaming, shouting in joy and relief. But Commander Rylan knew the truth. The Empire was not beaten. They had many engines left, and with each victory, the cost grew heavier. The war was far from over. The purge engines still burned, and the Phantom Legion was running out of time. The Empire's wrath, the first purge. Engine's death shook the galaxy. For the people of Earth, it was a miracle. For the Galactic Empire, it was an insult they could not forgive. Admiral Vanar stood at the center of his war map, fists trembling. His armada, ships larger than cities, had been humiliated by shadows. His voice carried venom as he gave the order. "Enough whispers, enough games. Wipe them out. Every ship, every soldier. I want their phantoms burned from existence." The command spread through the fleet, and the Empire unleashed its wrath. The next hours turned the skies into fire. Massive formations of warships descended, sweeping the void clean with plasma storms. Their cannons roared with enough force to tear continents apart. The Phantom Legion had struck from shadows before, but now every shadow burned under the Empire's searchlights. One Legion frigate after another was dragged into the open, surrounded and ripped apart. The silence of the void filled with explosions, black ships shattering like glass. On Earth, people could see it even with the naked eye. Dozens of streaks burned across the heavens, Legion ships falling like dying stars. Hope that had just been born began to tremble. Commander Rylan stood on the bridge of the Obsidian Fang, his flagship, watching the massacre unfold. His visor hid his eyes, but his voice was tight with control. "They adapt faster than expected," one officer said, breathless. "Our losses—" "Report," Rylan cut in. 37 ships gone in less than an hour, hundreds of soldiers lost. A silence fell. The Phantom Legion had always been small, and now they were bleeding faster than they could fight. Rylan closed his fist. He had trained these men and women, had watched them rise from nothing into shadows feared across the galaxy. Now, one by one, they were dying. But retreat was not an option. If they fell, Earth would burn. On the ground, Mason and his group heard the broadcasts. News came in fragments, ships destroyed, soldiers gone, the Phantom Legion fighting, but being crushed. Civilians huddled closer, faces pale, listening to every word. "They can't win," someone whispered. "The Empire is too strong." Mason's jaw tightened. He had once believed the same, but after seeing the Legion fight, he refused to give in. He stood and spoke with a voice that cut through the fear. "Listen to me. They fight so we can breathe. So long as one phantom lives, Earth still has a chance. And if they fall, then it's our turn." Around him, tired civilians lifted their heads. Soldiers gripped their weapons tighter. Even children looked upward with something like courage. The Legion's shadow stretched across Earth, and even in defeat, it lit a fire in ordinary hearts. Back in orbit, the battle grew worse. The Empire deployed its elite, the Crimson Guard, warriors bred for slaughter, armored in red and gold. They boarded Legion ships in waves, tearing through corridors with plasma blades. One Legion destroyer, the Silent Dagger, fought until its decks were choked with fire. Surrounded, boarded, its captain gave a final order: ignite the core. The ship exploded, taking 3 enemy cruisers with it. To the Empire, it was madness. To the Legion, it was duty. On the Obsidian Fang, Rylan stood over a holomap filled with red, enemy fleets pressing closer, more engines powering up, more death coming. His officers waited for orders. Finally, Rylan spoke. "We cannot win by fighting everywhere. We must cut off the head." "The command ship?" Rylan nodded. "Admiral Vaynar. Without him, the fleet stumbles. Kill the head, and the body hesitates." It was suicide. The command ship was a fortress, surrounded by dozens of escorts, shielded by layers of defense. No sane soldier would attack it. But the Phantom Legion had never been sane. Admiral Vaynar, unaware of the blade aimed at him, prepared his next strike. The purge engines, though wounded, still gathered power. His fleet still outnumbered the Phantoms 100 to 1. "Earth will not survive this day," he sneered. But deep in the void, cloaked in shadow, the Obsidian Fang began its silent approach. On Earth, Mason listened to the last transmission that leaked through the Empire's jamming. A distorted voice, heavy with static, but clear enough. "This is Commander Rylan. We move on the command ship. Hold on, we are not finished." Every bunker, every ruin, every survivor heard those words. And though they knew the odds, they felt something stir again. Because even when crushed, even when dying, the Phantom Legion did not surrender. The Empire had unleashed its wrath. But the shadows were not done yet. And soon, the greatest battle would not be fought in the skies above Earth, but inside the heart of the Empire itself. The Phantom's last strike, the Obsidian Fang, drifted silently through the void, cloaked by technology no one in the Empire understood. Around it, the wreckage of Legion ships floated like a graveyard of shadows. Only a fraction of the Phantom Legion remained, but they were still alive, and that was enough. Commander Rylan stood at the center of the bridge. His armor was scorched, his voice hard as steel. Every soldier around him knew what they were about to do. No one expected to come back. "The command ship is the key," Rylan said. "Cut it down, and the Empire falters. Fail, and Earth burns." No one hesitated. They were the Phantom Legion. Death was their shadow, but Earth was their oath. High above Earth, Admiral Vaynar's ship gleamed like a floating palace, armored in gold and black, bristling with weapons. Dozens of cruisers circled it like wolves guarding their alpha. Inside, Vaynar stood proud, convinced victory was only moments away. The purge engines were still active, their fires ready to consume oceans. His wrath would turn Earth into a legend of fear. "Let the galaxy watch," he declared. "Let them see what happens when ants bite giants." But even as he spoke, the shadows came. The Obsidian Fang burst from cloak, engines roaring. It dived straight into the heart of the Empire's formation. Turrets opened fire. Plasma storms lit the void. Escorts moved to intercept. The Fang did not flinch. Phantom Legion ships followed, small and fast, weaving through fire like knives through silk. They tore through escorts, ramming, boarding, detonating their own cores to clear a path. Every ship that died carved a wound in the Empire's wall. On Earth, survivors watched the battle through hacked feeds. Children, huddled in bunkers, saw the Fang blazing like a black arrow against a sea of fire. For the first time, they cheered, not in fear, but in defiance. Ryland's voice thundered over comms. "Board the command ship." The Fang slammed into the Empire flagship's hull. Grappling clamps dug deep. Hatches blew open, and the Phantom Legion poured inside. They fought like shadows in hellfire, silent, merciless, precise. Hallways became war zones, plasma fire carving through walls. Crimson Guards met them head-on, but the Legion cut them down, step by step, room by room. For every phantom that fell, another pushed forward, and at the heart of the ship, Admiral Vaynar waited. The command chamber was vast, filled with holographic maps and guarded by armored elites. Vaynar stood in the center, his blade crackling with energy. When the Legion forced the doors open, silence fell. "So," Vaynar sneered, "the phantoms revealed themselves, shadows pretending to be warriors." Commander Ryland stepped forward, visor glowing in the dark. "We are the reminder. Empires fall, ghosts remain." The class H was brutal. Phantoms struck like wolves, cutting through guards, dodging the Admiral's fury. Vaynar fought like a titan, his blade tearing through armor, his strength fueled by arrogance and rage. One by one, Legion soldiers fell. But Ryland pressed forward. His blade met Vaynar's again and again, sparks showering the chamber. Outside, the battle raged. Phantom ships fell in flames. Earth survivors prayed in silence. The purge engines powered higher, their glow spreading across the sky. Time was running out. Inside, Ryland fought with everything he had. His armor cracked, his breath ragged. Vaynar laughed, his strikes shaking the deck. "You cannot kill the Empire," he roared. Ryland's voice was calm, steady, final. "We don't need to kill the Empire, we only need to kill you." With a surge of strength, he drove his blade into Vaynar's chest. The Admiral's laughter died, replaced by shock. His command link shattered. Across the fleet, chaos rippled as ships lost direction, formations collapsing. Vaynar fell, and with him, the Empire's grip cracked. But the victory came at a cost. The command ship's reactors destabilized, fire ripping through its core. Ryland gave the final order, voice echoing across the Legion's channels. "Pull back. Earth must live." The Obsidian Fang stayed behind, holding the flagship in place as its core overloaded. From Earth, survivors saw the explosion. The Empire's command ship split apart in a blast brighter than the sun. The escorts scattered, leaderless. The purge engines went dark. The Phantom Legion had cut off the head. When the fires faded, only a handful of Legion ships remained. Their numbers were broken. Their leader was gone. But Earth was still alive. In the ruins of a city, Mason stood with civilians staring at the sky. His voice carried a truth that spread from mouth to mouth, across every survivor, across every colony that he had heard the story. They wanted to break us. Instead, they gave us legends, the Phantom Legion. The Galactic Empire retreated, humiliated but not destroyed. They would return one day with vengeance burning. But the galaxy would never forget what happened above Earth, how shadows rose against giants, how ghosts struck back, and how, when the Empire tried to break humanity, humanity's phantoms showed the stars what it truly meant to fight.